Imagine signing a $370 million contract with one of the world's top shipbuilding nations, only to turn around 2 years later and be willing to pay $85 million just to cancel it. Sounds crazy, right? That's exactly what New Zealand did. In 2020, New Zealand teamed up with South Korea to build modern ferries for its North and South Islands. The deal promised cutting-edge technology, bigger capacity, and a solution to a decades-old transportation problem. But by 2023, the project had stalled. No ships were built, deadlines were missed, and costs were soaring. So here's the big question. Why would New Zealand risk such a massive financial hit just to walk away from this partnership? And why did they eventually turn to China instead? This isn't just a story about ships. It's a tale of national strategy, technological capability, and the safety of thousands of passengers who rely on these ferries every year. Today we'll dive into the full story, exploring why New Zealand made this bold move, what went wrong with South Korea, and why China became the country's new go-to partner. Buckle up! It's a journey that spans continents, industries, and even the turbulent waters between New Zealand's islands. Perfect. To understand why New Zealand needed these new ferries so urgently, we first have to look at the country's unique geography. New Zealand isn't just one landmass. It's two main islands, the North Island and the South Island, separated by the Cook Strait. This isn't a calm, easy-to-cross stretch of water. The strait was formed over millions of years by tectonic movements and rising seas, and today it's known for its extreme currents and strong tides. You might wonder, why doesn't New Zealand just build a bridge or an undersea tunnel? Well, parts of the Cook Strait are more than 3,000 meters deep, and the region sits right on the boundary between the Indo-Australian and Pacific tectonic plates. This makes it one of the most earthquake-prone areas in the world. Even the shallowest points are around 220 meters deep, and building anything that could safely withstand the seismic activity and turbulent currents would cost billions, far beyond what's practical. That's why ferries have been a lifeline for centuries. Every year, around 800,000 passengers and 250,000 vehicles rely on these crossings, including trains. For New Zealand, these ferries aren't just a convenience. They're a vital part of national infrastructure, connecting the economic and political hub of the North Island with the tourism and agriculture-focused South Island. In short, without a reliable ferry system, New Zealand's economy, transportation, and daily life would face serious disruption. This sets the stage for why modernizing the fleet became an urgent and high-stakes priority. Now that we understand why ferries are so critical, let's look at the problem New Zealand was facing. The country's ferry fleet, operated by Kiwi Rail, was seriously outdated. The oldest vessel dated back to 1988, and the average age of the fleet was a staggering 31 years. When ships get this old, breakdowns aren't just inconvenient, they're dangerous. There were multiple alarming incidents that highlighted just how risky the situation had become. In 2013, one ferry lost a propeller while crossing the Cook Strait due to metal fatigue, forcing it out of service during the busy summer season. In February 2023, another ship suffered a total power failure. And perhaps most shocking, in January 2023, the Costly ferry lost power in all its main engines while carrying around 850 passengers. The vessel started drifting toward shore, narrowly avoiding a major disaster. These weren't isolated events. They were a warning. Each breakdown disrupted travel, threatened passenger safety, and put pressure on the economy. The older ferries were expensive to maintain, repairs were frequent, and service suspensions were becoming normal. The New Zealand government faced a clear choice: continue risking public safety and mounting costs, or invest in a modern fleet that could reliably handle the crossing. The urgency was undeniable. The future of inter-island transportation depended on it. To solve the ferry crisis, New Zealand initially turned to one of the world's shipbuilding giants, South Korea. South Korea's shipyards, like Hyundai Heavy Industries, Samsung Heavy Industries, and Duho Shipbuilding, have long been global leaders, producing everything from massive cargo ships to advanced naval vessels. Their reputation made them an obvious choice for building modern ferries. In 2020, New Zealand signed a $370 million contract with Hyundai Mipo Dockyard to build 2 large rail ferries. These ships were designed to carry up to 1,500 passengers and 40 train carriages, powered by dual-fuel propulsion systems that met high safety and environmental standards. On paper, it was a perfect solution: modern technology, proven expertise, and vessels large enough to fully replace the aging fleet. But in reality, the project ran into serious problems. By 2023, 2 years after the contract, construction hadn't even started. The design from South Korea turned out to be far larger than New Zealand had anticipated, meaning the planned upgrades to Wellington and Picton ports were no longer enough. Instead of a smooth project, the required port expansions ballooned the total cost from an initial $800 million plan to a staggering $2.3 billion, nearly 3 times the original budget. Despite South Korea's expertise, the combination of oversized designs, stalled progress, and skyrocketing costs created frustration and concern in New Zealand. A world-class partner alone wasn't enough to guarantee success when local realities and logistics became overwhelming. Faced with soaring costs and no tangible progress, New Zealand made a bold and costly decision. They canceled the contract with South Korea. By this point, the government had already paid $44 million in prepayments. On top of that, canceling the project meant paying an additional $144 million in settlement fees. In total, nearly $200 million had been spent, and yet, not a single ferry had been delivered. So, why take such a financial hit? The newly elected New Zealand government argued that continuing the stalled project would waste even more taxpayer money. The combination of overspending, port expansion challenges, and construction delays made the original plan unrealistic. Transport Minister Winston Peters at the time emphasized that canceling the project would ultimately save billions in long-term financial pressure. But the stakes weren't just about money. The ferry connection between the North and South Islands is a critical part of the country's transport network. Every breakdown in the aging fleet posed safety risks to hundreds of passengers, disrupted the economy, and created nationwide concern. Canceling the contract was a high-risk move. Costly, yes, but necessary to prevent further delays and dangers. This dramatic decision left New Zealand with a clear problem. The aging ferries still needed replacement, and time was running out. The country had to find a reliable partner, quickly. With South Korea out of the picture, New Zealand needed a new partner who could deliver on time, within budget, and to modern safety standards. That's when they turned to China, which, honestly, has been the world's #1 shipbuilding nation for more than a decade. China's shipyards really do dominate global production. In the first half of 2025 alone, Chinese shipbuilders accounted for over 47% of all completed ships worldwide, and an astonishing 64% of new orders. Their design capabilities are advanced, efficient, and, impressively flexible. Many of their vessels are under 200 meters long, so ports need only minor upgrades, which means avoiding those massive cost overruns New Zealand experienced with South Korea. China's track record isn't just about numbers, though. Globally, nations have increasingly trusted Chinese shipyards for large, high-standard projects. For example, Qatar Energy recently ordered 18 ultra-large liquefied gas carriers from China, each with a capacity of 271,000 cubic meters, totaling $5.5 billion. Even European shipping giants, like Denmark's Maersk, have turned to China for modern fleets. These contracts really demonstrate that China can handle complex, customized projects on a scale few other countries can match. For New Zealand, this made China the logical choice. Reliable technology, predictable delivery schedules, manageable costs, and a partner whose capabilities were recognized worldwide. By August 2025, New Zealand officially transferred its ferry orders to China, with a target delivery date set for 2029. The decision marked a turning point, one that promised to finally modernize the country's crucial inter-island transport network. New Zealand's shipbuilding saga isn't just a story about ferries. It reflects a global shift in industrial capability and strategic partnerships. South Korea, once the unquestioned leader in shipbuilding, has been, well, losing ground. Its focus on standardized mass-market vessels limits its ability to meet specialized client needs, like New Zealand's rail ferries. Safety incidents and aggressive cost-cutting have also really damaged its reputation in the global market. Meanwhile, China has been steadily rising, not just in volume, but in expertise. Countries that once relied on South Korea, such as Qatar, are now placing major contracts with Chinese shipyards. Even nations in Europe, including Denmark, are increasingly turning to China for modern, complex vessels. This trend shows that reliability, innovation, and flexibility are becoming more important than just traditional reputations. For New Zealand, this decision carries broader lessons. Strategic partnerships aren't just about choosing the most famous or established company. They're about matching capability to need, assessing risk, and ensuring timely, cost-effective results. It's also a reminder that infrastructure projects are more than engineering challenges. They're tightly linked to national safety, economic stability, and long-term planning. In a way, New Zealand's pivot to China mirrors a larger global pattern. As industries evolve, countries must adapt quickly, balancing financial prudence, operational necessity, and, of course, geopolitical considerations. So, let's recap this remarkable journey. New Zealand faced a critical transportation challenge: aging ferries that threatened safety and disrupted travel between the North and South Islands. The initial solution, partnering with South Korea, promised expertise in modern ships, but stalled progress. Oversized designs and skyrocketing costs forced the government to make the difficult decision to cancel the project, even at a cost of nearly $200 million. Turning to China offered a fresh start. With unmatched shipbuilding capacity, advanced design capabilities, and a proven record of delivering complex projects worldwide, China became the reliable partner New Zealand needed. The move reflects not only a national infrastructure decision, but also a global trend of shifting trust, capability, and strategic partnerships in the shipbuilding industry. This story isn't just about ferries. It's about strategy, planning, and making tough choices to protect citizens, budgets, and national interests. It's a reminder that in an interconnected world, decisions about technology and infrastructure ripple far beyond borders. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. We'll continue exploring stories like this, where technology, strategy, and global partnerships collide in ways that affect real lives every day. Don't miss out on our future projects and updates. The next big story is always just around the corner.